There is a very strong criticism on the internet of the invasion of the Islamic culture on the British and the Western civilization. The values of the West, supposedly disregarded and fed to the barbaric and uncivilized cultures of the Middle East and the East, remain a flashpoint for the protesting citizenry. But what are those values that differentiate these cultures? It appears strange that this criticism stems from the right, and the right leaning liberal part of the Western populace. And that is surprising because Western civilization is the least right wing of any civilization. Christian nationalists gather around to protest against Islamic invasion. However, Western civilization is the only significant civilization that believes, for example, that abortion is a right for women, and believed so for many years. No other civilization believes abortion is a right, even if they remain apathetic to the suspension of life of the infant in the womb. And even though abortion is considered murder by the Christians, they somehow believe that such is still debatable. But what apparently is not debatable are the cultural things, like people eating with their hands or women wearing hijab. One further significant difference between the two civilizations, which is highlighted by the Westerners themselves, is the freedom and rights afforded to women, including sexual rights. Of course, such rights are limited in other cultures. Yet somehow, when the consequences of these rights demand discussion on the values that perpetuated these rights, the white culture somehow remains unheard. In one sense, for the right and the right leaning liberals, all values that whites held for the past 60 years or more are an illusion and not really what the whites believe, just like a porn actress finding Jesus in the 11th hour. However, what wrong values that Muslims and Indians and Chinese hold are descriptive of their decadent and uncivilized nature. So, as a man, you cannot hold whites as misandrist, but you should believe that blacks have less self control, or that Indians are dirty, or that the Chinese don't have strong and fundamental enlightenment values. All of this is justified by arguing that whites are not really what they stood for these many decades. They were fooled by the elites or some specific groups. White women were lured into hating men, or choosing career or starting an OnlyFans. Yet somehow whites are one of the smartest, self-controlled and most moral of all people. This of course is xenophobia. The idea that whites are whatever is the best that they held during their entire civilizational history. So if you believe that abortion is wrong, you must look at the whites and their values before 1960s. Or if you are an anti-liberal, you go back as far as 18th century. However, interestingly, 19th century London was dirty as hell. Edwin G. Burroughs and Mike Wallace write in A History of New York City to 1898 how London and other prominent cities were filled with horse dung. When you see in the supposed forfeiture of the West is a desperate reclamation of perennial values by the white people after abandoning the same or in fact being against them. This bid to hate the other is a part of claiming the virtue as their own, when none is to be found there.